Lila Carver's coffee spilled across the wooden table the moment she looked up and saw him standing there, soaking wet from the storm outside, water dripping from his dark hair and expensive suit that clung to his broad shoulders like it had been tailored exactly for this moment. She grabbed napkins frantically, trying to save her laptop from the spreading puddle, and he moved without hesitation, his large hands helping her lift the computer to safety before the liquid could reach it. "Thank you," she breathed, her heart racing from the near disaster. Her manuscript 3 years of work sat in that laptop, and she hadn't backed it up in 2 days. "No problem," he said, his voice deep and warm despite the obvious chill he must have been feeling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you." She finally looked at him properly then, really looked, and found herself staring into eyes that were an unusual shade of gray-blue, like the ocean during a storm. He was handsome in a way that made her forget words, which was unfortunate since words were literally her profession. His jaw was strong, shadowed with stubble, and there was something about the way he carried himself that suggested confidence without arrogance. "You didn't startle me," Lila lied, wiping down her laptop with dry napkins. "The storm did. That thunder was ridiculous." He glanced toward the window where rain pelted the glass in sheets. "It came out of nowhere. I was 2 blocks away when it started, figured I'd wait it out somewhere dry." The coffee shop was small, one of those independent places in downtown Portland that refused to be a chain, despite prime location. Lila came here every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon to write, had done so for the past year since she'd moved to the city. The owner, an older woman named Marie, made the best vanilla lattes and never minded when Lila camped out for hours. "Good choice," Lila said, gathering the soggy napkins. "Marie makes incredible coffee. I'll have to try it." He was still standing there, still dripping on the floor, and Lila realized he probably wanted to order something. "Sorry, I'll let you," she started to say, but Marie called out from behind the counter. "Harrison Bennett, is that you? Good Lord, boy, you're soaked to the bone." Lila watched as his face transformed with a genuine smile, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look younger somehow. "Hi, Marie. Yeah, I should have checked the weather." "You never did have the sense God gave you about rain," Marie said affectionately, already pulling out a towel from somewhere beneath the counter. "Come here, dry off before you catch pneumonia." He moved toward the counter, and Lila tried not to watch the way his wet shirt clung to what were obviously well-defined muscles. She failed. Then she forced herself to look back at her laptop screen, at the chapter she'd been writing before the interruption. The usual. Marie asked him, and Harrison nodded, "Please. And whatever she's having," he added, gesturing toward Lila. "Since I made her spill hers." Lila looked up, surprised. "You don't have to do that." "I want to," he said simply, and there was something in his tone that suggested he was used to getting his way, but not in an obnoxious manner. More like he was used to making decisions quickly and sticking with them. "Large vanilla latte," Marie announced before Lila could protest further. "I know her order by heart." "Regular customer?" Harrison asked, running the towel through his dark hair. "Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork," Marie confirmed. "She's writing a novel, going to be famous someday, you mark my words." Lila felt her cheeks heat. "Marie, please." "It's true," the older woman insisted. "I've read some of it. You've got talent, honey." Harrison looked at Lila with renewed interest. "A novelist, that's impressive." "It's just a hobby," Lila said quickly, which was a lie. It was her entire life, her entire focus. The reason she'd moved to Portland and taken a job as a museum tour guide that paid barely enough to cover rent, but gave her flexible hours to write. "Doesn't sound like just a hobby if you're here twice a week working on it," Harrison observed. He'd moved closer to her table again, towel draped around his neck, and Lila caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with rain. She shrugged, closing her laptop. There was no way she could concentrate on writing with him standing there looking like some kind of romance novel hero himself. "What about you? What do you do?" "I run a company," he said vaguely. "Nothing as interesting as writing novels." Marie laughed from the counter where she was preparing their drinks. "Nothing as interesting," he says. "Harrison, you're too modest." "What kind of company?" Lila asked, curious despite herself. "Real estate development," Harrison said. "Commercial properties mostly. Office buildings, retail spaces, that sort of thing. In Portland. All over the Pacific Northwest. Seattle, Portland, Eugene, boys. We're expanding to California next year." The way he said, "we," and expanding to California with such casual confidence suggested this wasn't some small operation. Lila had a feeling Harrison Bennett was more successful than he was letting on, but she didn't press. She'd learned early in life that people who really had money rarely talked about it, and people who talked about it constantly rarely had as much as they claimed. Marie brought over their drinks, setting them down with a knowing smile. "You two chat." "Harrison, you should sit down, you look exhausted." "I am," he admitted, and now that Lila looked she could see the tiredness around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "It's been a long week." "It's only Wednesday," Lila pointed out. "Exactly." He pulled out the chair across from her. "Do you mind?" She should mind. She should tell him she needed to work, that she had a deadline to meet even though it was self-imposed and flexible. But instead she heard herself saying, "Go ahead." He sat down with a sigh of relief, wrapping his hands around the large black coffee Marie had made him. "So, novelist and museum tour guide. How do you balance that?" "You heard that part too. Marie has a carrying voice," he said, and there was humor in his tone. "Museum must be interesting work." "It is, actually. I work at the Portland Art Museum, get to spend my days surrounded by beautiful things and talking about history and culture. Could be worse. Could be sitting in back-to-back meetings arguing about zoning permits and construction timelines," Harrison agreed. "Rough week?" Lila asked, taking a sip of her latte. "Perfect, as always." "Rough month. We're trying to close a deal on a property downtown, but the seller keeps changing their terms. My lawyers are ready to walk away, but I think we can make it work if everyone would just take a breath and be reasonable." "Maybe they're scared," Lila suggested. "Sometimes people get difficult when they are afraid of making the wrong choice." Harrison considered this, studying her with those storm-colored eyes. "That's insightful. Do you write psychological thrillers?" She laughed. "No, contemporary romance actually. But I minored in psychology in college, before I dropped out to take care of my mom." The words came out before she could stop them, too personal for a conversation with a stranger. But something about Harrison made her want to talk, to share, and that was dangerous. Lila had learned to keep her walls up, to protect herself from getting hurt again like she had with David 3 years ago. "Is your mom okay?" Harrison asked gently. "She died 2 years ago. Cancer." Lila looked down at her coffee, at the foam art Marie had created in the shape of a heart. "I moved here after, needed a fresh start." "I'm sorry." He said it simply, without the usual platitudes people offered, and somehow that made it easier to hear. "Thank you." She looked up at him. "What about you? Family in Portland?" "My parents are in Seattle. I've got a brother in New York, sister in Los Angeles. We're all pretty scattered, but we try to get together for holidays." "That must be nice," Lila said, meaning it. She'd been an only child, and now, with her mom gone, holidays felt empty and quiet. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily despite the fact that they were complete strangers. Harrison was funny in a dry, intelligent way that made Lila laugh more than she had in months. He told her about the time he'd accidentally scheduled 3 important meetings at the same time and had to run between conference rooms like some kind of corporate juggler. She told him about the tourists who tried to touch a priceless sculpture despite all the signs and her warnings, then acted offended when she'd had to intervene. Outside, the storm began to clear, afternoon light filtering through the breaking clouds. Harrison checked his watch and frowned. "I should get going. I've got a dinner meeting across town in an hour." Lila felt a surprising stab of disappointment. "Of course. Thanks for the coffee." He stood, pulling out his phone. "Can I get your number?" The question caught her off guard. "My number. I'd like to see you again. Maybe take you to dinner, somewhere nicer than a coffee shop. Although this place is great," he added quickly, glancing at Marie, who was watching them with undisguised interest. Lila's heart started racing again, but this time it had nothing to do with spilled coffee. "I'm not looking for love," she said, the words coming out more blunt than she'd intended. "I'm sorry, I'm focused on my writing and my career, and I don't have time for a relationship." Harrison looked at her steadily. "I wasn't asking you to marry me, just dinner." "But that's how it starts," Lila said. "And I'm not interested in getting involved with anyone right now." She waited for him to get angry or offended, to make some comment about her being presumptuous or full of herself. That's what David would have done. But Harrison just nodded slowly, something like understanding crossing his features. "Okay," he said, "I respect that, but if you change your mind." He pulled out a business card from his wallet, set it on the table. "Call me." Then he was gone, the bell above the door chiming as he stepped out into the wet street. Lila stared at the card, at the embossed lettering that read Harrison Bennett, CEO, Bennett Development Group, with a phone number and email address below. CEO. So he wasn't just running a company, he was running his own company. Probably the kind of successful that came with millions in the bank and a lifestyle she couldn't even imagine. "You're an idiot," Marie said, appearing at her table with a cloth to wipe down the surface. "Excuse me." "That man is gorgeous, successful, clearly interested in you, and you turned him down flat. You're an idiot." "I told you, Marie, I'm not looking for a relationship. I need to focus on finishing my book, on building my career as a writer. And you can't do that while also having dinner with a handsome man. Lila, honey, you're 28 years old. Your mama wouldn't want you hiding away from life because you're scared of getting hurt again." Lila felt tears prick her eyes unexpectedly. "How do you know about that?" "You've been coming here for a year. You think I haven't noticed that you never mention friends, never mention dating, never mention anything except work and writing. You think I haven't noticed the way you flinch whenever I ask about your personal life." Marie sat down in the chair Harrison had vacated. "I know pain when I see it, sweetie. Lost my husband 10 years ago, thought I'd never smile again. But life goes on, and we have to decide whether we're going to live it or just survive it." "I'm living," Lila protested weakly. "You're surviving." "There's a difference." Marie patted her hand. "But it's your choice. Just think about it, okay? Harrison's a good man. Known him since he was a kid, used to come in here with his grandfather every Sunday morning. He's genuine, and that's rare." After Marie returned to the counter, Lila tried to go back to her writing, but the words wouldn't come. She kept thinking about Harrison's eyes, about the way he'd helped her save her laptop without hesitation, about how easy the conversation had been. She thought about the business card sitting next to her coffee cup, and finally, frustrated with herself, she shoved it into her bag and packed up to leave. The museum was quiet when she arrived for her evening shift. Wednesday nights were never busy, just a few dedicated art lovers wandering the galleries. Lila gave 2 tours, both to small groups of tourists, and tried not to think about gray-blue eyes and the sound of a deep laugh. She failed. Over the next week, Lila threw herself into her writing with renewed determination. She went to the coffee shop on her usual days, but Harrison didn't appear. She told herself she was relieved, that this was what she wanted. But Marie's words kept echoing in her head, and sometimes late at night, she'd pull out Harrison's business card and stare at it before putting it away again. On the following Wednesday, exactly 1 week after they'd met, Lila was giving a tour to a corporate group when she saw him. Harrison stood in the back of the crowd, wearing a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, watching her explain the significance of a Renaissance painting with what looked like genuine interest. Her heart stuttered, but she kept her professional composure, finishing the tour with her usual enthusiasm and knowledge. When the group dispersed, Harrison approached. "That was fascinating," he said. "I had no idea you knew so much about art history." "It's my job," Lila said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What are you doing here?" "One of my clients wanted a private tour for their team, something about building culture and appreciation for the arts. I remembered you said you worked here, thought I'd come along and see if I'd run into you." "That's borderline stalking," Lila said, but there was no heat in her words. "Is it? Because I thought it was taking a chance." Harrison moved closer, and she caught that scent again, cologne and something distinctly him. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." "Harrison, just hear me out," he interrupted gently. "I respect what you said about not looking for love, but I think we have something here, something worth exploring, even if it's just friendship. I like talking to you, Lila. I like the way you see the world. So I'm asking again, can I take you to dinner? No pressure, no expectations. Just two people enjoying a meal and conversation." She should say no. Every self-preservation instinct screamed at her to say no, to protect herself, to stay focused on her goals and her healing. But instead she found herself saying, "Friday night, 7 o'clock, but somewhere casual, not fancy." His face lit up with a smile that made her breath catch. "Deal. Give me your number, I'll text you the address." This time she did. Friday arrived faster than Lila expected, and she changed outfits 4 times before settling on jeans, a soft blue sweater and ankle boots. Casual but put together. She left her dark blonde hair down in loose waves, and applied just enough makeup to feel confident without feeling like she was trying too hard. Harrison had texted her the address of a small Italian restaurant in the Pearl District, the kind of neighborhood place with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. When she arrived, he was already waiting outside, and the smile that crossed his face when he saw her made the nervous butterflies in her stomach intensify. "You look beautiful," he said, and it didn't sound like a line. It sounded genuine. "You clean up nice yourself," she replied. He was wearing dark jeans and a navy button-down with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. Casual, but somehow still sophisticated. The restaurant was cozy and warm, with the scent of garlic and fresh bread filling the air. They were seated at a corner table with a view of the street, and Harrison ordered a bottle of red wine after checking that she liked wine. "So," he said after they'd placed their orders, "tell me about this book you're writing. What's it about? You really want to know?" "I really want to know." Lila took a breath. She usually didn't talk about her writing with people outside of her online writers group, but something about the genuine interest in Harrison's expression made her want to share. It's about a woman who inherits her grandmother's bookstore in a small coastal town and decides to give up her corporate job in the city to run it. While she's there, she discovers her grandmother had this whole secret past and a decades-old mystery that was never solved. It's part romance, part mystery, part self-discovery. That sounds amazing. How far along are you? About 2/3 done. I'm hoping to finish the first draft in the next few months, then comes the editing and revision process. After that, I'll start querying literary agents. Have you always wanted to be a writer? Since I was 10 and discovered the library in my elementary school. I used to hide away in the fantasy section during lunch and recess, just getting lost in other worlds. My mom encouraged it. She was a teacher, loved books as much as I did. Harrison reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was so natural that Lila didn't pull away, just looked down at his fingers intertwined with hers. She'd be proud of you, he said quietly. I hope so. Lila blinked back tears. Some days I'm not sure. I dropped out of college to take care of her, never finished my degree. I'm working a job that barely pays the bills while I chase this dream that might never pan out. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being foolish. You're not foolish. You're brave. Do you know how many people have dreams they never pursue because they're too scared of failing? You're actually doing it, actually putting in the work. That takes courage. What about you? Lila asked, wanting to shift the focus away from herself. Have you always wanted to be in real estate development? Harrison laughed, the sound warm and rich. God, no. I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid. Was obsessed with sharks and whales. Used to drive my parents crazy talking about ocean conservation and deep-sea ecosystems. What changed? Reality, I guess. My grandfather started Bennett Development Group 40 years ago, built it from nothing into a successful company. My dad took it over when Grandpa retired, and there was always this expectation that I'd join the family business. So I did. Got my MBA, learned the ropes, took over as CEO when my dad had a heart attack 5 years ago and decided it was time to step back. Do you regret it? Lila asked. Not pursuing marine biology. Harrison considered this, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand in a way that sent shivers up her arm. Sometimes. But then I think about the things I've been able to build, the jobs we've created, the spaces we've designed that bring communities together. It's different than what I imagined, but it's meaningful in its own way. And I volunteer with an ocean conservation nonprofit, so I still get to be involved in marine biology, just not as a career. Their food arrived, plates of pasta and risotto that smelled incredible, and they ate while continuing to talk. Harrison told her about growing up in Seattle, about sailing with his grandfather on Puget Sound every summer, about his brother who was an attorney in Manhattan, and his sister who designed sets for movies in LA. Lila told him about her childhood in Eugene, about her mom's battle with cancer, about moving to Portland and slowly rebuilding her life. You mentioned not looking for love, Harrison said carefully as they shared tiramisu for dessert. Can I ask what happened? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Lila set down her fork, the old hurt rising up despite the time that had passed. His name was David. We dated for 2 years, lived together for 1. I thought we were building a future. Then my mom got diagnosed, and I had to leave school to take care of her. David said he supported me, but over time, he got more and more distant. Said I was too focused on my mom, that I didn't have time for him anymore. He wanted me to put her in a facility so we could get back to our normal life. But you couldn't do that, Harrison said softly. She was my mom. She raised me alone after my dad left when I was 5. She worked 2 jobs to give me a good life, to make sure I could go to college. I wasn't going to abandon her when she needed me most. Lila's voice cracked. David gave me an ultimatum, choose him or choose her, so I chose her and he left. Moved out while I was at the hospital with her one day, didn't even have the decency to do it face to face. Harrison's jaw tightened with anger. He sounds like a coward. He is. I don't know, I haven't talked to him since. But it made me realize that I'd been so caught up in the relationship, in trying to be what he wanted, that I'd lost myself. After Mom died, I promised I'd focus on me, on my dreams, on becoming the person I wanted to be. And that didn't include making room for someone who might just leave when things got hard. I understand that, Harrison said. But Lila, not everyone is like David. Some people stick around. Some people show up when things get difficult instead of running away. How do you know which kind you are until it's too late? You don't. That's the risk. But that's also what makes it worthwhile when you find someone who stays. They finished dessert in contemplative silence, and when Harrison paid the bill despite Lila's protests, she didn't fight too hard. Outside the restaurant, the Portland evening was cool and clear, the city lights reflecting off the buildings around them. "Can I walk you to your car?" Harrison asked. "I took the bus," Lila admitted. "Car's in the shop. Then let me drive you home." She knew she should refuse, should maintain some distance and independence. But the evening had been so perfect, and she wasn't ready for it to end yet. Okay. His car was a sleek black BMW, expensive but not ostentatious. He opened her door before getting in on the driver's side, and she gave him her address, a small apartment in southeast Portland that was nothing like the Pearl District neighborhood they were leaving. "Thank you for tonight," Lila said as they drove through the city. "I had a really good time." "So did I. Can we do it again?" "Harrison, I know you're not looking for love, but maybe you could be looking for friendship, or companionship, or whatever word makes this feel less scary." Lila laughed despite herself. "You're persistent. One of my better qualities. Also one of my more annoying ones, depending on who you ask." When they reached her apartment building, Harrison parked and walked her to the door despite her protests. In the yellow glow of the porch light, he looked at her with an expression that made her heart race. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, and she appreciated that he asked instead of just assuming she should say no. This was moving too fast, getting too real, but instead she whispered, "Yes." His lips were soft against hers, gentle but sure, and Lila felt something inside her chest crack open, some wall she'd built around her heart starting to crumble. She kissed him back, her hands coming up to rest on his chest where she could feel his heart beating as fast as her own. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Harrison rested his forehead against hers. "I really like you, Lila Carver." "I really like you too, Harrison Bennett, and that terrifies me." "It terrifies me too," he admitted, "but maybe we can be terrified together." She laughed, the sound lighter than she'd felt in years. "Maybe we can." Over the next few weeks, Lila and Harrison fell into a pattern. He'd meet her at the coffee shop on her writing days, bringing her favorite pastries from a bakery near his office. She'd text him random art facts during his boring meetings, making him smile at inappropriate times. They had dinner twice a week, alternating who chose the restaurant, and Harrison introduced her to his favorite sushi place while she took him to a taco truck she swore had the best food in Portland. He came to the museum on a quiet afternoon and let her give him a private tour, asking thoughtful questions and genuinely engaging with the art in a way that made her fall for him a little more. She visited one of his construction sites and wore the hard hat he provided with surprising enthusiasm, listening as he explained his vision for the building with a passion that matched her own for writing. They hadn't slept together yet, both seeming to understand that this was something fragile and important that deserved to be treated with care. But they kissed goodnight after every date, and those kisses grew longer and deeper each time, until Lila found herself thinking about him constantly, wondering what he was doing, wishing she could hear his voice. "You're in love with him," Marie announced one Thursday afternoon, setting down Lila's latte with a knowing look. "I am not," Lila protested, but the words sounded weak even to her own ears. "Honey, you light up every time he walks through that door. You smile at your phone when he texts. You talk about him constantly, even when you don't realize you're doing it. You're in love. It's too soon. We've only been seeing each other for a few weeks. Time doesn't matter when you meet the right person. I knew I was going to marry my Henry the day we met. Told my mama that night that I'd found my husband and she laughed at me. But I was right. We had 35 beautiful years together before he passed. Lila closed her laptop, abandoning any pretense of writing. What if I'm wrong? What if I let myself fall and he turns out to be like David? What if you're right? What if he's exactly who he seems to be and you miss out on something incredible because you're too scared to take the chance? Marie sat down across from her. Fear is natural, sweetie, but don't let it be the thing that makes your decisions for you. That night, Lila lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Marie's words. She thought about Harrison's laugh, about the way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the world, about how safe she felt when his arms were around her. She thought about the business card she'd kept in her wallet, even though she had his number saved in her phone now. A talisman of the day they'd met. She was falling in love with him. She probably already had fallen in love with him, if she was being honest with herself. And that realization was both exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. Her phone buzzed with a text. Harrison. Can't sleep, thinking about you. She smiled in the darkness and typed back, me too, on both counts. Tomorrow night, let me cook you dinner at my place. Lila hesitated. Going to his home felt significant, a line they hadn't crossed yet, but she wanted to see where he lived, how he existed in his private space. Okay, what time? 7, I'll pick you up. I can drive myself. My car's fixed. Then text me when you're on your way. Want to make sure you get here safely. The next evening, Lila followed Harrison's directions to an address in the West Hills, the affluent neighborhood with views of downtown and the mountains. She should have expected it, should have realized that a CEO of a successful development company would live somewhere impressive. But when she pulled up to the modern architectural masterpiece with floor-to-ceiling windows and clean lines, she felt suddenly out of her depth. Harrison must have been watching for her because he opened the front door before she could even knock. Hey, you found it okay? It's beautiful, Lila said, stepping inside. The interior was even more stunning than the exterior, all open space and natural light, with hardwood floors and carefully chosen furniture that managed to be both stylish and comfortable. Thanks. I designed it myself, worked with an architect to bring the vision to life. Finished construction about a year ago. You designed this. Is that so surprising? He led her through the living room toward the kitchen, which was a chef's dream of stainless steel and granite. No, it's really impressive, Harrison. This whole place is like something out of a magazine. Wait until you see the view. He took her hand and led her to the back wall of windows that opened onto a deck. Beyond it, Portland spread out below them, the city lights twinkling as the sun set over the hills, Mount Hood visible in the distance. Wow, Lila breathed. This is incredible. It's my favorite part of the house. I drink my coffee out here every morning. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, and she leaned back against his chest, both of them watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. What are you cooking? She asked after a moment. Salmon with roasted vegetables and risotto. Hope that's okay. It's perfect. Can I help? They moved into the kitchen together, and Lila found herself enjoying the domestic intimacy of cooking alongside him. Harrison was efficient and skilled in the kitchen, clearly someone who cooked often rather than just ordering takeout. They sipped wine and talked while he prepared the meal, and Lila felt herself relaxing into the evening. Over dinner at his dining table, Harrison asked about her writing, and Lila told him she'd finished another chapter that week. I'm actually getting close to the end now. Maybe another month of writing, then I can start editing. That's amazing. I'm proud of you. You barely know me, Lila said, but she was smiling. I know enough. I know you're dedicated and talented and brave enough to chase your dreams. That's worth being proud of. After dinner, they moved to the living room where a fire crackled in the modern fireplace. Harrison put on soft music and pulled Lila down onto the couch beside him, and she curled into his side like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Can I ask you something?" Harrison said after a while, his hand stroking through her hair. "Sure." "What would you say if I told you I was falling in love with you?" Lila's breath caught. She sat up to look at him, searching his face for any sign that he wasn't serious. But his expression was open and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "Are you?" "Yes. I know it's fast, and I know you're scared, and I know you said you weren't looking for love, but I can't help how I feel, Lila. From the moment you looked up at me in that coffee shop, soaking wet and startled, I felt something I've never felt before, and it's only grown stronger every day since." "Harrison, you don't have to say it back," he interrupted gently. "I just needed you to know. Needed to be honest about what's happening here, at least on my end." Lila felt tears welling up, but they weren't sad tears. They were the kind that came from feeling too much, from having emotions too big to contain. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and it scares me to death." "Why does it scare you?" "Because what if you leave? What if I'm not enough? What if something happens and you realize this was all a mistake?" Harrison cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away the tears that had started to fall. "Lila, listen to me. I can't promise that nothing will ever go wrong. I can't promise we won't have hard times or disagreements or moments where we frustrate each other. But I can promise that I won't run away when things get difficult. I can promise that I'm here because I want to be, not because it's easy or convenient, but because you make my life better just by being in it." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know myself. Because I've dated enough to know what I don't want, and I've lived long enough to recognize something real when I find it. This is real, Lila. What we have is real." She kissed him then, pouring all her fear and hope and love into it. Harrison responded in kind, his arms tightening around her as the kiss deepened. They stayed like that for a long time, trading kisses and whispered words, the fire crackling beside them and the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "Stay tonight," Harrison murmured against her lips. "Just to sleep. I just want to hold you." Lila knew this was another line, another step forward in their relationship, but she nodded, trusting him, trusting this. "Okay." His bedroom was on the upper floor, with the same stunning views and minimalist aesthetic as the rest of the house. He lent her a T-shirt to sleep in, and they lay together in his king-sized bed, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her. "I've never felt this safe with anyone," Lila admitted into the darkness. "Good. You should always feel safe with me." Harrison pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Sleep, sweetheart. I'll be right here." She did sleep, better than she had in months, and woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. Harrison was already up, standing on the balcony off his bedroom with 2 mugs, watching the morning light over the city. "Good morning," he said when he noticed she was awake, coming back inside to hand her one of the mugs. "How'd you sleep?" "Perfectly." Lila took a sip of the coffee, made exactly how she liked it, even though she'd never told him. He'd paid attention, she realized, to everything. They had breakfast on the deck, bagels and fruit that Harrison had somehow procured without leaving the house, and Lila learned he had groceries delivered every week. They talked about their plans for the weekend, and Harrison mentioned he had a company event on Saturday evening. "It's this fundraiser gala my company sponsors every year for childhood literacy," he explained. "Usually boring corporate stuff, but the cause is good. Would you want to come with me? As my date, a gala, Harrison, I don't have anything to wear to a gala. So we'll go shopping, my treat. You are not buying me a dress. Why not? I'm inviting you to an event that requires formal wear. It's only fair that I provide the means for you to attend comfortably. Lila wanted to argue, but she could see the logic in his reasoning, and more than that, she could see how much he wanted her there with him. Fine, but nothing too expensive. He grinned in a way that suggested he had no intention of following that particular guideline. That afternoon, Harrison took her to a boutique in downtown Portland, the kind of place Lila had walked past many times but never dared to enter. The sales associate clearly knew Harrison, greeting him warmly and immediately understanding what they needed. Lila tried on 7 dresses before finding the one. It was a deep emerald green that brought out her eyes, floor-length with a subtle slit-up one leg and delicate beading on the bodice. She felt like a princess when she looked in the mirror, transformed from museum tour guide to someone who belonged at a fancy gala. "That's the one," Harrison said when she stepped out of the dressing room, and his expression made her blush. "You look stunning." "It's probably really expensive," Lila said, not wanting to look at the price tag. "I don't care, we're getting it." He stood and approached her, taking her hands. "Let me do this for you, please." "You're making it really hard to maintain my independence," Lila grumbled, but she was smiling. "Good. You can be independent and still let someone take care of you sometimes. They're not mutually exclusive." She kissed him, right there in the boutique, not caring that the sales associate was watching with an indulgent smile. "Thank you." Saturday evening arrived with a flutter of nerves in Lila's stomach. She'd spent the afternoon at a salon, another gift from Harrison despite her protests, and now her hair was styled in elegant waves and her makeup was professionally done. The dress fit perfectly, and when she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Harrison arrived to pick her up at 6, wearing a tuxedo that should have been illegal in how good he looked. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Layla, you're breathtaking." "You clean up pretty well yourself," she managed, her mouth suddenly dry. The gala was held at a historic hotel downtown, the ballroom decorated with thousands of twinkling lights and elegant floral arrangements. There were easily 300 people in attendance, all dressed in their finest, and Lila felt momentarily overwhelmed by the opulence of it all. But Harrison kept his hand on the small of her back, anchoring her, introducing her to people as his girlfriend without hesitation. She met his business partners, his clients, several city officials, and even the mayor. Everyone treated her with warmth and respect, and she slowly began to relax and enjoy the evening. "You're doing great," Harrison whispered in her ear during dinner, which was a 5-course meal served at elaborately decorated tables. "I feel like I'm in over my head," Lila admitted. "You're not. You fit here perfectly, just be yourself." After dinner there was dancing, and Harrison led her onto the floor for a waltz. "I didn't know you could dance," Lila said as he spun her gracefully. "My mom insisted on lessons when I was a teenager. I hated it then, but I'm grateful now." "Why now?" "Because I get to hold you like this." He pulled her closer, and they swayed together to the music, surrounded by other couples but feeling like they were alone. Later in the evening, Harrison was called to the stage to give a speech about the literacy foundation his company supported. Lila watched from their table, pride swelling in her chest, as he spoke eloquently about the importance of education and access to books for underprivileged children. He announced that Bennett Development Group was doubling their annual donation this year, and the room erupted in applause. "That was amazing," Lila said when he returned to their table. "You're amazing." "I just wrote a check. The foundation does all the real work. Don't diminish it. You're making a real difference in kids' lives. That matters." He kissed her softly, not caring that half the room was probably watching. "You matter." On the drive home, Lila's head was spinning from champagne and dancing and the sheer surreality of the evening. "I can't believe that was your life tonight. All those important people, that beautiful venue, the fundraising. It's so different from my world. Your world of art museums and coffee shops and writing beautiful stories. I like your world, Lila. I like it better than this, actually. The gala was nice, but I'd rather spend an evening with you in that little Italian restaurant than at a fancy event any day. Really, really." He pulled up to her apartment building and turned to face her. "Come back to my place tonight. Stay the weekend with me." Lila's heart raced. She knew what he was asking, what staying meant, and she wanted it, wanted him, with an intensity that surprised her. "Okay." His house was quiet when they arrived, just the sound of their footsteps on the hardwood and their slightly quickened breathing. In his bedroom, Harrison unzipped her dress slowly, pressing kisses to her shoulders as the fabric fell away. Lila turned to face him, suddenly shy, but the look in his eyes burned away any uncertainty. "You're so beautiful," he said, voice rough with want. She reached for his bow tie, untying it with fingers that trembled slightly. "So are you." They made love slowly, taking their time to learn each other, and it was nothing like Lila's previous experiences. Harrison was attentive and gentle, making sure she felt cherished and safe. And when they finally came together, it felt like something clicked into place, like two pieces of a puzzle finally fitting the way they were always meant to. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his bed, skin to skin, hearts beating in sync. "I love you," Harrison whispered against her hair. "I know I said it before, but I need you to know how much I mean it." "I love you too," Lila replied, and this time the words came easily without fear. "I love you so much it scares me, but I'm done running from it." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." They spent the rest of the weekend in a blissful bubble, cooking together, talking for hours, making love again and again like they couldn't get enough of each other. Harrison showed Lila his home office where he worked sometimes, and she told him about the ending she was planning for her novel. The bookstore owner solves the mystery and falls in love with the local carpenter who's been helping her renovate the shop, she explained. They realize they can have both their dreams and each other, that love doesn't mean giving up who you are. "Art imitating life?" Harrison asked with a smile. "Maybe a little." Lila curled into his lap where they sat on his couch. "I used to think I had to choose between my dreams and relationships, that I couldn't have both. But you've shown me that's not true. You support my writing, encourage it. You make my life better, not more complicated. That's all I want. To make your life better just by being in it, the same way you make mine better." Over the following months, Lila and Harrison's relationship deepened and grew. She finished the first draft of her novel and celebrated by letting Harrison rate it, terrified of his reaction. But he loved it, stayed up all night reading straight through, and told her it was the best book he'd read in years. "You have to get this published," he insisted. "Promise me you'll query agents." "I promise. I just need to edit it first." "When you do get published, and you will, I'm buying 100 copies." "That's ridiculous." "I don't care. I'm your biggest fan." Lila met Harrison's family when they came to Portland for Thanksgiving. His parents were warm and welcoming. His brother was funny and sharp-witted, and his sister immediately pulled Lila aside to tell her how happy Harrison seemed since he'd met her. "I've never seen him like this," she confided. "He's always been so focused on work, on the company. But with you, he's different. Lighter. Thank you for that." Christmas came, and Harrison surprised Lila with a week-long trip to a beach resort in Mexico. They spent their days swimming and reading on the sand, their evenings eating amazing food and dancing to live music. On Christmas Eve, they walked along the beach at sunset and Harrison pulled out a small box. "Before you panic, it's not an engagement ring," he said quickly, seeing her eyes widen. "Not yet, anyway. I know we're not ready for that." "Then what is it?" He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant in the shape of an open book. "For my novelist, to remind you that your dreams matter and I believe in them, in you." Lila felt tears streaming down her face as he fastened it around her neck. "I love it. I love you." "I love you too. More than I thought it was possible to love someone." They made love that night with the sound of waves crashing outside their room, and Lila thought about how much her life had changed in the past 6 months. How she'd gone from closed off and afraid to open and hopeful, all because of a man who'd walked into a coffee shop during a storm. Back in Portland, Lila spent January editing her manuscript with the help of her online writing group. Harrison read each revised chapter as she finished it, offering feedback and encouragement. In February, she began querying literary agents, sending out her work into the world with hope and terror in equal measure. The rejections came quickly. At first, form letters thanking her for her submission, but passing on representation. Lila tried not to take it personally, knowing this was part of the process, but each rejection still stung. Harrison held her through the disappointments, reminding her that it only took one yes. In March, she got her first request for a full manuscript from an agent who loved her query letter. Lila nearly dropped her phone when she read the email during her shift at the museum, and she called Harrison immediately. "That's amazing," he shouted into the phone, not caring that he was in a meeting. "We're celebrating tonight, wherever you want to go." 2 weeks later, the agent offered representation. Lila literally screamed when she got the email, causing Marie to come running from behind the coffee shop counter in alarm. "I got an agent. Harrison, I got an agent. I knew you would. I'm so proud of you." The next few months were a whirlwind of revisions with her agent, preparing the manuscript to go on submission to publishers. Harrison was there for all of it, celebrating the victories and providing comfort during the stressful moments. He attended her reading when she participated in a local author event, sitting in the front row and beaming with pride. In June, exactly 1 year after they'd met, Lila's agent called with news. A major publishing house wanted to buy her book. Not just buy it, but offer her a 3-book deal with a substantial advance. Lila stood in Harrison's kitchen where she'd been making dinner, phone pressed to her ear, listening to numbers that didn't seem real. "Yes," she heard herself saying. "Yes, absolutely yes." When she hung up, she turned to find Harrison watching her with a huge smile. "You did it. I did it." The reality was starting to sink in. "Harrison, I'm going to be a published author. You are, and I get to say I knew you when." He swept her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen. "This calls for champagne." They celebrated on his deck as the sun set over Portland, toasting to dreams coming true and to the future. "None of this would have happened without you," Lila said, curled into his side. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You did all the hard work. I just cheered you on. You did more than that. You showed me I could have both my dreams and love, that I didn't have to choose." Harrison set down his champagne glass and turned to face her fully. "Speaking of love and dreams and the future." Lila's heart started racing as he pulled out another small box, this one different from the necklace box. "Harrison, let me say this before I lose my nerve." He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring, simple and elegant. "Lila Carver, you walked into my life during a thunderstorm and changed everything. You made me laugh again, made me dream again, made me believe in something bigger than work and responsibilities. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you every single day. Will you marry me?" Lila was crying, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes. God, yes. Of course I'll marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, catching the light of the setting sun. Then he was kissing her, and she was kissing him back, and the whole world felt full of possibility and hope. They were married in September, a year and 3 months after they'd first met. The ceremony was small and intimate, held in Marie's coffee shop where it had all begun. Lila wore a simple white dress, and Harrison wore a navy suit, and Marie officiated because she'd been there from the start and it felt right. Harrison's family came from Seattle, LA, and New York. Lila's small group of friends from the museum and her writing group attended. But the most important thing was the two of them, standing in front of the table where they'd had their first conversation, promising to love and support each other for the rest of their lives. "I'm not looking for love," Lila said during her vows, echoing the words she'd once spoken in this very spot. "Because I already found it. In you, in us, in the life we're building together. You're my best friend, my biggest supporter, my favorite person. And I can't wait to spend forever showing you how much you mean to me." There wasn't a dry eye in the coffee shop. They honeymooned in Italy, 2 weeks of exploring cities and eating incredible food and being blissfully in love. When they returned to Portland, Lila moved into Harrison's house, bringing her books and her laptop and making his space theirs. Her novel was published the following spring to wonderful reviews and solid sales. She did book signings and readings, with Harrison attending every single one, always sitting in the front row with the proudest smile. When she was invited to a major literary festival, he rearranged his entire schedule to go with her. "You don't have to do that," Lila protested. "I know you're busy with the California expansion. My team can handle things for a few days. I'm not missing this." In the second year of their marriage, Lila sold another book series, and Harrison's company completed their largest development project to date. They were both successful in their careers, but more importantly, they were happy together. They still had date nights every week, still met at the coffee shop on Tuesdays and Thursdays when Lila was writing her next book, still made each other laugh until their sides hurt. On their 3rd anniversary, Lila gave Harrison a gift wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes. "We're pregnant," she said, watching his face cycle through confusion, shock, and pure joy. "We're going to be parents." His voice cracked with emotion. "In about 6 months." "Surprise!" Harrison pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "This is the best news, the absolute best news." Their daughter was born the following March, a perfect little girl with Lila's eyes and Harrison's dark hair. They named her Claire, after Lila's mother, and watching Harrison hold their daughter for the first time made Lila fall in love with him all over again. He was a wonderful father, patient and loving and present, despite his busy work schedule. He cut back his hours at the company, delegating more responsibilities so he could be home for bath time and bedtime stories. Lila wrote in the mornings while Claire napped, finding that motherhood had only deepened her creativity and given her new perspectives to explore in her books. 2 years later, they had a son, Henry, named after Harrison's late grandfather who had started it all. Their family felt complete, their home full of laughter and love and the beautiful chaos of raising 2 small children. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, nearly 7 years after they'd first met, Lila sat in Marie's coffee shop with her laptop open. She'd just finished writing the final chapter of her 7th novel, and she looked up to find Harrison walking through the door, shaking rain from his jacket exactly like he had that very first day. "Some things never change," Marie called out from the counter, and they all laughed. Harrison sat down across from Lila, reaching across the table to take her hand. His wedding ring glinted in the light, matching hers. "How's the book coming? Just finished it. Want to read the ending, always." As Harrison read the final pages of her novel, Lila watched him with a full heart. She thought about the woman she'd been 7 years ago, closed off and afraid, convinced she had to choose between love and her dreams. She thought about how wrong she'd been, how much richer her life had become by letting someone in. "It's perfect," Harrison said, looking up from her laptop. "Your best one yet. You say that about every book. Because it's true every time, you keep getting better." "We keep getting better," Lila corrected, squeezing his hand. "You and me, us. We keep building something more beautiful. We do." Harrison stood and moved around the table to kiss her, a promise and a reminder all at once. "I love you, Lila Bennett. I love you too. Thank you for walking into this coffee shop during that storm. Thank you for spilling your coffee and giving me an excuse to talk to you." They left the coffee shop hand in hand, walking out into the Portland drizzle toward the car where their children waited with Harrison's assistant, who'd agreed to watch them. Their life wasn't perfect, no life was, but it was real and beautiful and filled with love. And that was more than enough. That was everything. Years later, when Lila was a best-selling author with dozens of books published and Harrison had expanded his company nationwide, they still went to Marie's coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday. They still held hands across that same table where they'd first met. And when people asked how they'd found love, Lila always told them the truth. She hadn't been looking for it at all. Love had found her anyway, walking through a door during a thunderstorm, and it had changed her entire world. Their children grew up hearing the story of how Mom and Dad met, how a spilled coffee and a rainy day had led to a lifetime of happiness. Claire and Henry would roll their eyes good-naturedly, but secretly they loved it, loved knowing that their parents had found something rare and precious and worth holding on to. And on rainy days, when storms rolled through Portland and the world outside turned gray and wet, Lila would look at Harrison across whatever room they were in, and they'd share a smile that said everything. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for proving that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never expected to find." She'd told him she wasn't looking for love that day in the coffee shop, and she'd meant it. But love had found her anyway, in the form of a millionaire who walked through the door soaking wet, with storm-colored eyes and a heart big enough to hold all her dreams. And together, they'd built something more beautiful than anything Lila could have written, more lasting than any story on a page. A life, a family, a love that would endure whatever storms came their way. That was the real happily ever after, and it was better than anything she'd ever imagined.